There's something magical about cooking for the people you love. The clicking pots, the chopping of vegetables, the flavors coming alive. It's all a labor of love. And today, as I simmer and saute, I want to talk about something equally as nourishing: friendship among women. Hi, I'm Tasha, host of the Dear Naija Girl podcast, and thank you for joining me on this personal and amazing episode. Today, I'm going to be discussing the art of nurturing friendships as women while I cook a dinner for my friends that I have invited to spend Christmas with me. I know Christmas may have gone, but I really wanted to share this podcast because I wanted you to experience the thought of mind that I had while I was cooking this Christmas dinner for my friends. Friendship, especially among women, is not just something that is shared or just something about laughter or matching outfits. It's also about holding space for each other and about being a shoulder when life feels heavy and celebrating even the smallest win. But the honest truth is that nurturing friendships takes work. And I know we don't like to acknowledge that part, especially in this part of the world, Nigeria. But that's the truth. It's not easy at all. I'll be very honest with you. It takes work. And just like preparing this Christmas meal, it requires thought, effort, and intention. Growing up, all I have seen growing up is every Christmas, we get to spend it with family and we also get to spend it with friends. Growing up with guardians and aunties and a whole host of uncles, and finally getting to know my mom, there is one tradition that has always been constant, and that is Christmas meal. We spend it with families, we spend it with friends, but every woman in my life at some point, whether it's my auntie or my mom, has always spent Christmas Day in the kitchen cooking. And as much as I love cooking and as much as it's a love language for me, it is one thing that I have promised myself not to do. So every Christmas, all I do is cook in my house and eat with either my family or spend it with whoever is in my life or in my house at that time. So trust me, cooking a huge Christmas meal was not in my bingo card. But as I grow and as I learn a lot of things, which include that as much as cooking is a love language for me, this is also a way that I can show love. In fact, for me, cooking is a way I show love. If I really love you, if I really like you, trust me, at some point you're going to eat a meal from me. And I'm very intentional about the food that I give to people, because again, this is an extension of myself to them, right? I know that cooking Christmas meal is so difficult and it's such a hassle, but I really wanted to do this for my friends. So I created a 3-course menu that I shared with most of my friends. Mind you, this was impromptu, and I invited as many were available as possible and told them to come over, and I'm going to cook them a Christmas meal, especially those that were far away from their family and didn't have anywhere to spend Christmas on Christmas Day. So this Christmas meal was such an effort for me. And honestly, I felt like it was an extension of my intention for friendship. Think about it. How often do we call to check up on our friends? I feel like in this day and age, friendship is so superficial. It doesn't carry the weight of community the way it carried with our parents. And that was why for me, 2024 was very intentional for me when it comes to friendship, or when it came to friendship. I wanted to sieve out the friends that did not extend the energy and the love that I have always extended to them. They don't check up on me unless I check up on them. They don't call me unless I call them. I felt like I was carrying the friendship, and I felt like I was forcing the friendship to be what it was not. And so I took those kind of friendships away from my radar. Of course, if they need me, if they call me, I'm always going to be there for them. But I have to push my foot forward and focus on the friends that are actually solid friends for me over the years. So it was very intentional for me, because to be honest, when last did you plan a get together with your girls just to remind them of how much they mean to you? I know that life gets busy. That's the honest truth, with careers and relationships and families. But the beauty of sisterhood is in the small intentional acts of love. Like this meal for me. Every friendship needs seasoning and a little trust and a pinch of vulnerability and a whole lot of grace. We don't give a lot of grace to each other, especially when it comes to girlhood. girlfriends, friendship with other women, we don't give each other a lot of grace. And honestly, I think that is something that we need to start learning. So as I'm staring this path, I'm reminded that true friendship is just like cooking. You can't rush it. You can't fake it. It has to come from the heart. And sisters, when you get it right, the flavor is unmatched. It's unmatched because friendship among women is a bond unlike any other. It's the kind of relationship where you can laugh with each other until you cry. You can share your most vulnerable truth and true friends will not judge you for it. And you can cheer each other on through life's highs and lows. But it's still not easy. I would always say that I know because trust me, I have lived this. Misunderstandings are going to happen and sometimes you're going to drift apart with the best of your friends without even meaning to. So the question now is, how do we nurture these connections and ensure that they thrive even in the chaos of our everyday life? Just like cooking, maintaining friendship requires a lot of ingredients and effort. For example, I said it earlier, trust is like salt. It enhances everything and it brings out the best in any dish. And in this case, in any relationship. And to be very honest, without trust, everything feels bland and uncertain. Now, let's talk about patience. Patience is one of the things that I'm practicing right now while I'm waiting for this food to get ready. I am someone who literally has limited patience. I don't like waiting for anything. Friendship is also like food that takes time to develop its own flavor. You can't honestly rush it. Friendship needs time to build. There will be moments when your friends are too busy or going through something that makes them withdraw, and that's okay. True friendship is about understanding that people grow and change and leaving room for them to do so. But again, regardless of whatever it is that is going on, effort has to be in friendship for it to work. It's the same way you have to put in effort to make a good meal. It's the same way you have to put in effort to make a good friendship. Have you ever heard someone say something like, oh, she's my friend, so she should understand? Yes, your friend should understand, but friendship does not flourish on assumption. They thrive on effort and communication. Because to be honest, you want your friend to understand, but if you don't communicate what they need to understand about, then there is no basis for understanding. For example, yes, we're all busy, but you can always take out time to send out a random text to your friend or show up unannounced to their house with a bottle of wine. I know some people like their space and they don't like people showing up unannounced to their house. But even if you don't want the friend to stay, when the friend shows up unannounced and comes with a gift, accept the gift and, schedule another time to see your friend. Or you show up with a bottle of wine when your friend is having a bad day, or just simply remembering to check in, to be very honest, even when life feels overwhelming. Let me tell you a personal story about one of my friendship, right? I've had a friend, we've been friends for a very long time, over 5 years. And of course, it had always been smooth sailing. I felt like this was someone I've never had conflict with, like the closest of friends, right? But then again, I noticed that we started to pull apart, right? I noticed that I was putting in more energy than my friend was putting in. I also noticed that regardless of me always telling my friends the things that I felt she was failing on doing in the friendship from her own end, there was no change. There was the promise to change, but there was no change literally. And it was just so sad because the things that I was always asking this friend to do for me as a friend were the things that she intentionally does for other people, but she can't do for me. And I'm talking about things like, calling to check in without me calling to check in, sending a random text, going out on a date, celebrating my wins the way I celebrate her wins, supporting my business the way I support her business. Things like that, right? And despite promising to do that, she never did, but she always made out time to do that for other people. At first, I felt, the lack of communication and the lack of intentionality probably was just because that's the kind of person she is or because she has a very busy life. But when I saw her always doing this for her other friends and then not doing it for me, that is the so-called best friend, I realized that she was my best friend, but I was not her best friend. I also felt like, people will put in effort for people that they want to put in effort for. At the end of the day, people's effort reflects how much you mean to them. People's intentionality reflects how much you mean to them, So I just decided to love from afar, which is where she had kept me. Just love her from afar. Just be there for her if she needs to be. But no longer putting myself through the emotional roller coaster of loving someone of loving her on her own terms and her not loving me on my own terms. I don't know if that makes sense, but yes. And so I just realized that, I had to know when to cut the line, right? I had to know when to cut the line. And sometimes you treat people some way and you don't even see it. But the saddest part of the whole situation is when other people begin to see how you treat that person without you even seeing it. So I had to know when to cut the line, right? So now let's talk about let's talk about what happens when things go wrong. Because let's face it, even the best friendships can hit a rough patch, right? Just like when you're cooking your jollof rice and then you want it to be firewood jollof, but it's just not giving that. It's just the same way as well. And conflicts in friendships is inevitable, to be honest. And I'm learning the hard way that when you don't have issues in your friendships, you're not really as close as you think you are. So maybe it's a misunderstanding, maybe it's something deeper, but to be honest, conflict doesn't have to mean the end. In fact, some of my strongest friendships have come out of moments of conflict that we chose to work through. And sometimes it's just all about sitting down and having those hard conversations. It's about saying, I felt hot when you did, instead of pointing fingers. And it's also about listening, to be honest, really listening. I feel like people don't even know how to listen. Just really listening to the other person's perspective. Because at the end of the day, no one is perfect and we all make mistakes. But here's also another truth, right? Not every friendship will last forever. And that is okay. Not every friendship is going to last forever. And that is okay. Because sometimes we outgrow each other. And sometimes we need to set boundaries for our own peace of mind. Boundaries are healthy. They are like the lid on a pot. They keep things contained, they prevent messes, and they also ensure that what's cooking inside just turns out right. And as women, we often feel guilty for stepping back from a friendship that no longer serves us. But let me remind you that you can love someone and still choose to protect your peace. It doesn't make you a bad friend. It makes you human. Speaking of protection, have you ever noticed how food plays a very important role in our relationships? For example, when you're just starting to get to know a person, you go out on dates, of course, food is always involved. Growing up, my auntie always said, if you want to bond with somebody, cook for them. And she was right. There is something about sharing a meal that breaks down walls and brings people together. And as I'm preparing these meals for my friends, I think about all the conversations that will happen around this table tonight. The laughter, the stories, the moments of connection. Food is more than just nourishment for me. Food is a love language. And I promise you, food is my love language. So if you're looking for a way to connect with your friend, maybe start with an invitation to dinner. I want girls to have more friendship dates. I want girls to start prioritizing their relationships and their friendships over their partners and their love interests, to be very honest. Because friendship is one of the most beautiful gifts that you can give and you can receive. It's not perfect. It's not always easy, but I promise you, it's worth every bit of effort. I'm going to use cooking as a metaphor for friendship. Let's start with the ingredients. Just like this dish I'm making, every friendship needs its own unique recipes. Some friendships thrive on shared experiences, like traveling together or having weekly calls. Others are built on being there for each other during the tough times, like when you're facing heartbreak or work stress. For example, look at vegetables like carrot, bell peppers, onions. Each one adds something different to the pot. In the same way, every friend brings something special to the table. There's the friend who always knows how to make you laugh. There's the one who gives you the best advice. And there's the one who just listens when you want to vent. Together, all these friends, they create the perfect balance for you. Just like every meal, right? But here's the thing a lot of people don't understand. Friendship is not always perfect. Sometimes you're going to oversalt the dish, or sometimes it will not turn out the way you planned. Friendship is the same, just like this food. There is going to be misunderstandings, as I said earlier, mistakes, and moments when things feels out of balance. But just like with cooking, You don't just throw away the whole pot. You adjust, you fix, and you keep going. Let me tell you about one of my friends, right? We've been through so much together, and we met at a time when I didn't even know I needed her. I remember one day years ago, I was feeling very overwhelmed. I had had a very long week. I'm not going to go into details, and everything just felt heavy. Without me saying a word, she showed up at my house with a pot of pepper soup and said, "Let's talk." That moment, honestly, has stuck with me till now because it reminded me that real friends see you. Even when you're trying to hide, they see you. They don't wait for you to ask for help. They just show up. And isn't that what we all need? Someone who shows up, sometimes unannounced, with a pot and a listening ear. Honestly, I will tell you the very truth. Something that I've learned the hard way in most cases is that friendship like that is very rare. It's very, very rare. And it's something that we should never take for granted. When you find your people, when you find your tribe, which I promise you would, cherish them. And don't just cherish these people, also nurture them. Nurture those friendships. Because honestly, relationships don't thrive on autopilot, and a lot of times we treat it like it does. You have to water them like plants. You have to feed them like this meal. And sometimes you also have to weed out the bad energy so that you can make space for growth. Please. The one thing that I learned the hard way, and honestly, would I even say I learned? Or would I say I'm still learning? But one thing I'm still learning is how to weed out the bad energy friends and make space for growth, honestly. And speaking of nurturing, can we talk about hosting? Oh my God. Let me be very honest with you guys. Hosting is one thing that I do not like. Oh my God. I am a terrible host. So the fact that I'm doing this today, honestly, shows how much these people mean to me. I don't like hosting. A friend of mine had one time told me that my husband is a better host than I am. And honestly, that's facts. He's such a good host. He goes on autopilot immediately. He cares about people. He likes to make them comfortable, make sure they have everything that they would need even before they get to the house. Anywhere he is in, like, he's a very good host. I'm terrible at it. The only thing that I know that I love above all else is cooking. I can cook morning, noon, night, but cooking takes a lot of effort as well. And the busier that I get with life, the less time that I have to cook. But I always still make sure that I have the time, that I make out the time to cook. Yeah. So as I was saying, hosting, I hate it. I'm not really good at it. And it's so difficult and it's so time consuming, right? But hosting is one of those things that people often take for granted. But to be honest, it's an act of love. If people are hosting you, it's an act of love. And let's be very honest, women tend to carry most of this emotional labor. And I'm speaking on like hosting. So right now, I'm standing here, I'm cooking, I'm stirring, I'm chopping. And honestly, I'm thinking about the smiles on my friends' faces when they walk through that door and they smell this food. So that moment is definitely going to make it all worth it. But hosting is more than just cooking. It's also about creating an atmosphere where people feel loved, where they feel safe, and where they feel seen. And women, we do this all the time, whether it's planning events, sending out thoughtful messages, or making time for our loved ones. We are always holding space for others. But I honestly want to remind you all that while you're pouring into others, do not forget to pour into yourself. You can't serve from an empty pot, literally and figuratively. You can't serve from an empty pot. So how do you balance it all? How do you give to others without losing yourself in the process? For me, it's all about setting boundaries and making time for self-care. It's about being honest with myself. I'm always like, I don't think anyone can be as honest with themselves or with me as much as I'm honest with myself. And I'm also honest with my friends about what I can do and what I cannot do. Same thing with my relationships. I'm always honest upfront about what I can do and what I cannot do. I don't want to get into the friendship and get into the relationship and then people begin to expect more than I can give. But at the same time, I also give myself room to expand myself to accommodate most of the things that the people that I love. And most importantly, It's also about surrounding yourself, just like I do with myself, with people who pour into me just as much as I pour into them. So while this food is cooking, let me ask you, when was the last time you reached out to a friend? I know that I've asked this before, but I really just want to ask it again. But on the flip side, I'm asking this again because on the flip side, when was the last time you let a friend show up for you? Friendship is a two-way street, and sometimes we get so caught up in giving that we forget how to receive. That is why in every season, whether it's my birthday, whether it's Christmas, I always open myself up to exchanging gifts and also receiving gifts. And I also open myself up to exchanging grace, love, and vulnerability. So to all my incredible women out there, remember, just as you feed your body, just as we feed our bodies, we must also feed our relationships and our friendships. Call your friends, forgive when you can, and celebrate every chance you get. And if all else fails, just invite them over for a home-cooked meal. Because nothing says I love you like food made with care. Nothing says I love you like food that is made with care. And so as I wrap up this meal and this conversation, here is what I want you to take away. Friendship is one of the most beautiful gifts that we can give and receive. It's not perfect. It's not always easy, as I said before, but it's worth every bit of effort. So as you go about your day, think about the women in your life who have been there for you. Send that text, make that call, or invite them over for a meal. Because just like Christmas and every amazing season that we have, friendship are best enjoyed when shared. Honestly, just like a Christmas meal, friendships are best enjoyed when shared. So from my kitchen to yours, I want to wish you for the first time a happy new year. And I wish you more bonds that make life so rich and so happier. And also, I would also like to leave you guys with this. And yes, I know I said also so many times. Yes. But I also want to leave you with this, right? May this season bring you all the best people. May this season bring you all the people that are meant to be in your life. May this season bless you and impact you in ways that you can't even comprehend. May this season also show you who your real friends are. And honestly, I pray that you build and you have communities that will change your life, change your generation, change how you see friendship, change how you see love, and help you build a family outside of your family. Season's greetings. And don't forget to share this podcast. If this episode touched you or you enjoyed this episode and this episode spoke to you, please don't forget to share, don't forget to subscribe, and also don't forget to leave us a review. I am Tasha, and you can find me on Dear Naija Girl on all platforms. See you and have a spectacular year.